Well, today is a good day. We're going to go visit my friend Flip Pallot, and we're going to interview him. Not often does someone like me get to interview someone who was a childhood hero. Not really a child. I actually didn't start watching Flip until I was in my late 20s. But to me, he was the voice of fishing. He was the guy that made inshore fishing cool. Good morning, buddy. Good to see
I
you.
didn't give you a proper hug.
Glad you're doing so good.
Come sit down, man.
Yeah?
You got a fire going?
Yeah. Got a bunch of questions. Going to be asking the questions that are more personal.
Ooh. Could be epic.
You've been documented too well over the years. Everything from walkers to skiff building to your, I guess, your accolades as an angler and where you are in relation to, the current modern version of fishing to what it used to be like with equipment. So I came up with a list and some fun stuff too, some lightning round stuff about personalities. Actually, John Donnell that was out there was one of those questions.
Oh, really?
It was. But I didn't want to spoil anything when I met him.
We should have dragged his back here.
But yeah, he is one of those guys that's on the list that I wanted to talk about a little bit because I believe he was your first, wasn't he your first guest on Walkers?
He was my first guest on Walkers.
Yeah.
The first.
The very first one.
Yeah. That's, you know what, I had forgotten that, but
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
He actually, it was the pilot.
Yeah.
That was the first time we ever hauled a camera out of the bag.
Yeah. And you sunk the barb deep on a lot of guys after that. You really did. But I want to go through these because today's Valentine's Day. The first story that I really am taken back by, because you are the master storyteller of all of us over all the years, and you have this interpersonal skill of when you speak. Remember the old commercial, E.F. Hutton, when E.F. Hutton speaks,
I do remember
listen?
that, yeah.
People listen. You have a way, the cadence and the richness of your voice where people kind of like lean in. It's almost like church. Like you can have a room full of raucous, rowdy guys that are drunk. And you walk in the room and start to talk about something, and you could literally drop a needle on the floor and it would sound like an explosion.
You are way too kind.
But
and obviously you've never heard Stu Apt tell a story.
Oh, well, he's in here too. He's one of the questions. But I'm going to say, because today is Valentine's Day, and my wife did throw that whole thing out about bass fishing, tell us the story about how you met Diane, because it's one of the sweeter moments that I've ever heard you talk about something. When you talk about it, it almost makes you like, oh wow, that's something special.
Well, it is something special, and she's clearly and without question the driving force of my existence these days, for sure. But I grew up with and was close friends always with a fellow John Emery,
Yes.
whose name you'll know. So John and I were in the first grade together, and every grade together, and we graduated college together. I mean, so we were together since the beginning. And Diane had gone, she was at the time a flight attendant for Pan Am. And she flew with Stu. And so she was interested in catching a tarpon.
Okay.
She had gone with a girlfriend and the girlfriend's husband to the Keys, fished under the bridges, they caught tarpon, and Diane was fascinated with it and wanted to catch a tarpon. So she was looking for a guide, and someone gave her John Emery's name. She called John and called John and called John, and he never called her back. And so she went back to whoever referred her to John, and she said, "This guide won't call me back. Is there another guide, that you could recommend?" And he said, "Well, there's this guy, Pallot. You could, call him. He's a friend of John's, and he guides in the same area." Anyway, Diane called me. And we went down to Flamingo, and it was one of those classic, beautiful, flat, calm backcountry days in the summertime. And the minute she got out, she had one of these old-time square Volvo automobiles, and she pulled up in front of the house, and she got out and had on a pair of these little sportive shorts. And I looked at her walking up the driveway, and I went, "Trouble. This is trouble. Trouble." And this is something that I will never forget to my dying breath. We launched, I had a little Challenger, 15-foot Challenger that was from 1952. I had rebuilt it into it was a ski boat, and I had built it into a skiff. We went into Snakebite, and I started pulling up into the breeze, and I could smell her. As soon as she got upwind of me and I was pulling into the breeze, I could smell her at the other end. I went, "This is just..."
It's a distraction now.
Man, I guess I was shot full of love from the very, very, very first moment I saw her walking up the drive. And we had a really great day fishing, and I brought her back. And that evening, Lefty called me, and he said, "Flip, I need to do a little short photographic essay on fishing redfish in canoes, and I need a pretty girl to be in the canoe with me So
that was
he
your
said,
second opportunity.
Yeah, he said, "Do you know a pretty girl that might want to do something like that?" And I said, "Yes, I do. So that was the second time I got together with Diane for that shoot, and she and Lefty started bickering and arguing and poking fun at each other from the very, very first second. You know how Lefty was with girls.
Oh, he was.
Oh, my goodness.
He was in fact, I don't even know how you trusted him. But that is a great Valentine's story and a great way to start off. Talking about stories, one of my favorite stories that you've retold in front of folks before, and I don't know if my audience has heard it, that tickles the crap out of me, is the story where you're messing with Lloyd Rubel with those signs in the backcountry because he knew it so well, basically being the protege of Herman's, and then you go in the backcountry and you just started messing with him. Tell us that story.
Well, Lloyd, who is one of my dearest friends in the world and one of the most amazing, brilliant people that I've ever known. At first, I didn't like Lloyd at all. I disliked Lloyd.
Yes.
He aggravated the hell out of me because he had been very, very close friends with Herman Lucerne, who was one of the pioneers of the Everglades backcountry. And Lloyd hung around constantly with Herman, and through Herman learned the backcountry. And Lloyd's so intelligent that he absorbed it quickly.
Yes.
And in the end, actually knew it better than
Yes.
Herman had ever known it.
And that would not surprise me.
Yeah, no, Lloyd, when he sets his mind to something, but at the time of this story, I did not like Lloyd Ruble at all. And several of us felt that Lloyd was taking people from the Miami Beach Rod and Reel Club back into the backcountry and taking them around and showing them all that country. And we resented it because we were working real hard to learn it. And this was before GPS.
That's right.
This was before any navigational aids at all.
Yeah, you're stuck with a paper chart maybe, and it
It
wasn't
was-
even that detailed for back there.
No, it wasn't
Yeah.
that good. And so it involved, learning that country involved putting yourself at risk, not at physical risk, but at risk of spending the night or more back there until you could wander your way back out. And that happened to me many times. And it happened to Rob Fordyce many times because we were learning it together at the same time, and Ted Jurasik. And so Lloyd, none of us cared so much for Lloyd at the time. So as we began to learn that backcountry better and better, we began to see Lloyd in these little places back there and everything. And some of the places involved creeks that were secret creeks that led back through the mangrove tunnels into hidden lakes that were full of snook and redfish. And nobody would cut those creek mouths out. We would leave them all overgrown
over.
so that you had to really wrestle to get back about 10 yards
Yeah.
into the creek. And then we would cut them out all the way back into the lakes and everything. So Ted Jurasik came up with the idea of making signs. They were aluminum signs, and they were about this wide and about this high. And he made them in his shop, in his tool and die shop. And he drilled a hole in each one of them for a nail, and had them painted by a sign painter.
They looked very professional.
They were very professional signs, and every one of them said, "Hi, Lloyd," with a big exclamation mark. And then on the bottom, it would said, number
Sign 2.
number 4, for example.
Okay.
And so we would take that sign and we would nail it up on a mangrove at the entrance to one of these creeks, but not the outside entrance,
Just inside.
just inside, so that when Lloyd struggled his way back in there, the first thing he would see was one of these signs that said, "Hi, Lloyd, number 4."
Yeah.
And then we would skip, we wouldn't make 5, 6, and 7, but we'd make sign number 8. And we'd put it somewhere else. Lloyd would struggle in and he'd see sign number 8, "Hi, Lloyd," sign number 8. And now he'd start wondering, well, where's 5, 6, and 7? But there was none. But in his mind, we had 5, 6, and 7, and we made like 100 of these signs. And every one of these places, we would put one of these signs.
And I bet it drove him mad.
It drove him nuts. And he didn't know who did it.
Yeah.
That was the thing. He had no idea who did it. So it drove him nuts, and we had so much fun with that. And then through another great story, but a long one, I was forced to meet Lloyd and spend time with Lloyd in a situation where there was no choice. We were in a remote place. And anyway, got to know Lloyd and got to like Lloyd, and then got to realize who Lloyd really was and how much was there. He's like an iceberg, you see a little something on the horizon, but under the waterline, he's huge.
This is why the storytelling, because people are learning, you're a romantic because of the Diane story. You're a prankster. See, people always think you're so serious and so
I'm very serious,
so unfiltered, and they don't. To get to know Flip the way that some of us know you, we know that we can It's a good time. Tell me about the story. Stu Apt, one time I was sitting at his house with him and Janine, and he was telling me that the story of Jose, when Jose was trying to become a guide and he was naming his boats and he needed to buy a boat, and Stu called you because you were in the banking business then, and asked you if you could help him get a loan. How did that come about?
Well, it was, you have to remember, well, at the time, it's hard for me to believe this looking backwards, but there was a time when I did work in a bank.
Yeah.
And I made installment loans and mortgage loans and commercial loans and automobile dealer floor plan loans where the dealers finance.
Big inventory.
Yeah, so that's the sort of thing that I did in the bank. And Stu called me and asked me if I could help Jose out. Jose needed a truck, he needed a skiff, and he had no credit at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he
was a kid.
Yeah, he was a kid
yeah.
with nothing. I guess you have to understand that banking back in those times was very, very different than it is right now.
Yes.
I mean, Jose, as he was then, could never get any kind of a loan
Now.
today.
That's right.
There's no way. But back then, it was, there was a thing that in the industry we called character loans.
Mm-hmm.
And if we felt that someone
Of good
of
character.
good character deserved a loan, we could make the loan. As long as the loan didn't go bad,
Yeah.
everything was fine.
Right.
Today, you'd make that same loan and a bank examiner would look at it and you'd get fired. So I knew Jose. I mean, I knew who he was. He
Yeah.
used to, Lefty had given Jose my telephone number because Jose called Lefty, Stu, and myself, called one of us every single day to ask a
Something.
billion questions.
Yes, that's great.
I mean, and he did it respectfully and everything, but the phone would ring and we didn't have caller ID then, or
Yes.
Jose would have never got through. So I decided to make Jose a truck loan, a boat loan, and our bank was just getting into the credit card business, MasterCharge at the time. So I gave Jose a MasterCharge card with a limit of something like $600. And he bought a Maverick, it was a Maverick boat, one of the early Mavericks that Lenny Berg was making. And he bought an old used Dodge truck, which no bank would finance back then. A used truck,
Yeah,
no way.
no way.
So Jose got all that stuff, and Jose never, ever missed a payment.
Yeah.
He never missed a payment. I mean, he didn't even have customers.
Yeah.
I don't know where, but Jose never missed a payment, and he was always very, very responsible. And over the years after that, I made him a number of other loans to upgrade things,
Yeah.
and he was always as responsible with the other loans as he was with the first one.
He was that guy.
Yeah, he was that guy. He was, Jose was a constant guest on all of the shows that I ever had. I mean, every television show that I ever had, Jose was a frequent guest. Excuse me. And Jose was a hypochondriac. I don't know if you.
I didn't know that.
Oh my God, he was. You could. We did this all the time. We'd just screw with him all the time. We go, Jose, are you all right? You just come up here, Jose, you okay? And he would go, why? What? What? He goes, what? What? He goes, what? He goes, you don't look. He go, why? What's the matter? So one day we're in Key West to film something offshore. He had a Conch 27.
I remember.
Really,
I remember
really
seeing that in his shows.
Cool boat.
Yeah.
And the sound man who worked with Walkers for many, many years, and he was great, Rick Patterson, his biggest joy in life was screwing with Jose. I mean, he never missed
It made
any
his day.
opportunity, no matter what it was. I mean, Rick was always on top of Jose. So I come to the marina early, and Jose's getting the boat ready, and I see this huge tattoo on his arm, and it's like a Maori-looking symbol of some kind. And I go, Jose, new ink? And he goes, oh yes. He goes, yes. He goes, look at this. I wanted to show you this. And he puffs up his muscle, and you see this thing on there. And I go, well, what is that? He goes, it's the Hopi Indian symbol for life in complete harmony. And I go, really? He goes, yes, complete harmony. So when Rick gets there a little bit later, I go, Rick, you got to see Jose's new tattoo. It's the Hopi symbol for life in complete harmony. So the minute Rick sees it, Rick goes, oh, Jose, what a great tattoo. And Jose goes, yes. He goes, it's this Hopi Indian symbol for life in complete, total harmony. And Rick goes, who told you that? And he goes, no. And he goes, I know that. I researched it. And Rick goes, Jose, he goes, you know, in college, my major was the Hopi Indian tribe.
I did a thesis on it.
I did, yeah, that's exactly. I did my thesis on Hopi symbols. He goes, that is the Hopi symbol for complete chaos. Life in complete chaos. He says, I don't know who told you it was. And Jose goes, no, it's not. It's not.
He started freaking out about it.
Completely nuts. So I went through years. I mean, we did like 16 years of that show, and I don't know how many times Jose was a guest, and Rick every time would see Jose coming through the woods and sharpen his spear.
Getting ready for it.
Yeah.
I can't remember who it was, but you know, we talk about you in a couple of different ways, but there was a little outlaw in you too, because you weren't supposed to be in certain parts of ENP, Everglades National Park, with these canoes where you'd leave a boat and take a boat. And I've heard rumors that you have sunk boats so that the rangers couldn't find them, so that you could retrieve them later to go fishing.
You know, I don't know what the statute of limitations is.
I think it's over, so I think we can come clean now.
It was a sad time in the history of the park, in my opinion. You know, we were at the point, probably 3 or 4 of us, where we knew the Everglades National Park, that part of it, the estuary, better than anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Probably better than anyone ever. Better than the Indians.
Yeah.
We spent so much time back there exploring and fishing and learning, and it was more than geography. The signposts for getting around back then were not on a plotter.
Yeah.
But they were tree lines, and they were vegetation lines, places where certain vegetation grew,
Right.
and it didn't grow in other places, and so you knew that place.
Right.
Tree lines, the height of trees, or the relative height of trees, one to the other, or certain trees that had moss, or a big osprey nest.
They were your tells.
They were the signposts
Yep.
of the Everglades. And some of these places were virtually inaccessible by skiff.
Mm-hmm.
So because we were guiding back there, we would take people back there in our skiffs as far as we could go. We would stake the skiffs down, and then we would transfer into canoes that we had pulled up on the little islands and things back there.
Mm-hmm.
And we would turn them over against the weather.
Yeah.
And we would leave certain things, coolers in there and push poles and
Right.
things. I mean, it was...
Didn't make sense to take that back and forth.
And we would then begin to pole in the morning, and we would pole some circuit that we had in our minds for that day. You know, you guide,
Yeah.
you get there in the morning, and as you're getting someplace, you're already
Adapting.
because the weather changes, the tides are different, different time of year, whatever.
Can't be scripted.
Yeah. So we would spend the day with our customers back there in this loop, which would end at the end of the day back at the skiff.
Right.
So the Park Service never knew that was going on. We weren't hurting anything. We weren't damaging anything. We were actually showing Americans their park. And it was the only way that it could be done. So at some point, the use of satellites imagery became available to the Park Service. And at some point, a satellite saw one of our canoes, one or the other of our canoes, on one of those tiny little poisonwood islands. And it made them mad for some reason. And they actually, using the satellites, were able to vector a ranger back there, or a group of rangers, and they confiscated 3 or 4 of our canoes. And they took them to that ranger facility right across from the marina at Flamingo. In that little canal that goes in there. Yeah, they took them in there, and we had FL numbers on the canoes.
So you got a phone call.
We get a phone call. They call us in, and they have us come in there. Here's our canoes there. We were all registered with the park as guides.
Right.
So they knew who we were.
Oh, yeah.
They knew how to get us, and they called us in there. We went in there, and they had our boats. They fined us before they would release the canoes back to us, and they prohibited us from leaving the canoes back there. And they didn't even refer to them as canoes or working boats or anything else. They referred to them now as abandoned vessels.
Abandoned vessels.
And we would argue this: they're not vessels, they're canoes.
Yeah.
You know, they're the oldest form of Native American, true American transportation.
Water transit,
I said, we're not harming anybody, we're not hurting anything, we're just...
No petroleum products back there or anything.
So they just, no matter what we said, they referred to some ancient abandoned vessel statute in the books. So to be able to, I mean, it was an important part of our business.
Right.
So in order to be able to continue doing that, we simply, instead of pulling the canoes up on these little islands, we had places where we would just sink the canoes.
Yeah.
We would just turn the canoe up like this and let it
fill
up with water and just settle to the bottom. And we would then have to, and we would put a push pole inside the thwarts.
That
so
way
the push
it couldn't
pole
float
would,
out.
Yeah, the pole couldn't float up.
Brilliant.
And so everything we had was there except a cooler.
Yeah.
We would also bring an umbrella in case. So we would, we had to carry a few things in there, but most of what we needed was still back there. And then when it came time to come back there with a customer, part of the intrigue in the drill was that it was illegal, and we had to get the canoe back, float the canoe again.
It's starting to sound like my Tidewater diary I did with Steve Whitlock when we were talking about the drug smuggling years, where he ended up getting pinched by the DEA. And you talk to him about it now, and you can see a little light flicker in his eye, how fun it was still to think that you could do it.
Oh, it was a different time,
Yeah, it was. How long did you guide?
I guided for 14 years.
14 years. Is there any truth to a rumor that you eventually got to a point where you did not like to take someone that was a local or a Floridian or something like that back in places like that because you were worried about them maybe?
No, from the day I began guiding, I never took anyone from Florida.
Really?
Never, not one.
I thought, when someone asked me that, I was like, oh, that's impossible.
No, I never took. Well, I was lucky. I mean, I didn't have to pay the kind of guide dues that most guides have had to pay.
Yeah.
I was very lucky because I knew Lefty and I knew Mark Sosin.
That's right.
And all these people immediately, the minute I started
are
guiding,
giving you business.
Yeah.
They're giving you business.
So I had business from the day my shingle was hung. And so people from Florida, I recognized it from my days in the early fishing clubs.
Yeah.
You know, how cunning people were about finding. No, no, I never took Floridians. And with only rare exceptions to this rule, I only took one person at a time.
Yeah.
I never took two people, sometimes a father and son sort of thing, but fishing buddies and this, no, I never took two people. And the reason—
I definitely can relate to some of those challenges. You know, you can't get into the places that you really want to get into, and it's just hard to fish perfectly with
I'll
two
tell you what it
people on a
was
guide.
with me more than anything else. It was that in my heart, I guess I've always been a teacher.
Yeah.
And I always felt that having to share the fishing opportunities that occur during the course of the day, two people having to share those opportunities. I mean, you know how it is. Some days you have 3 opportunities to catch a fish.
That's it. Yeah.
And so it gave me a classroom that I had control over.
Yes.
It gave me the opportunity to focus on one person and help them with their casting, whether it was fly casting or plug casting or spin casting, with their understanding of what a fish's area of awareness is.
That's right.
And how to deal with that as an angler. And if you have to be sharing that with 2 people through the course of a day,
it loses something.
it does. And the person on the other end of the boat never reaches his full potential as an angler, because remember, I was not fishing Floridians. I was fishing people from Ohio.
That's right.
And
Idaho.
and Winnipeg.
And
these
Canadian.
people were looking at salt water, at blue crabs for the first time in their lives. And so to understand the total package,
Yes.
it was easier. You can understand.
I can understand that. Come with me on a trip into angling adventure.
Come with me on a trip into angling adventure. We'll ride the ragged edge where the fish are big and wild.
That's how every Saturday started for boys like me back in the day. Who wrote that line?
A guy named Pat Smith, who was a great writer, and Pat started out writing the Walker's.
Cay Chronicles.
Yeah. Pat was a brilliant writer and a hysterically funny guy, really cool guy, and he was with us when we came up with the idea for the Chronicles, and for many years he was the writer, and then he left, and
it was a brilliant sentiment. I mean, it was powerful. It was intuitive in the sense that, in a way, it started an entire generation of technical fishing professionals, and you were the cool dude that introduced it to everybody. I mean, you were the coolest thing out of Miami since Crockett and Tubbs were doing Miami Vice, if you can believe that. Everyone wanted to be Flip Pallot.
You know what? It was a wonderful accident of timing. You know, it was timing. There was nothing else at the time. It was also a time when television worked for outdoor programming. I mean, it was very easy. There was no outdoor competition for sponsors.
Yes, I know.
And so as a producer, you had incredible power then, creative power, that nobody has today.
Yeah.
A lot of it was new and fresh and daring and resourceful, and it wasn't because of me so much as it was, I mean, it was just the perfect storm.
Yeah. Don't sell yourself short. You were the unique personality there that really put it on the map. I don't know if anyone else would have done.
You'd have done the same thing.
Because when I grew up, honestly, I didn't start to get to watch you until like the early 90s, before I was watching Walker's Cay Chronicles. And I'm old enough that I was watching other stuff growing up, and my heroes back then were guys like Hank Parker.
Sure.
Bill Dance for sure. I mean,
Sure.
in fact, my television show FlatsClass is really kind of frameworked around that. But you can see how Walker's kinds of leaks into it because of the way I do things. But I mean, those guys, Kurt Gowdy and the American Sportsman, the Linder brothers that did In Fisherman magazine, those were the guys that I kind of grew up on. I mean, I'd watch the Bassmasters on the Outdoor Life Network and things like that to see Bob Cobb and see how all these guys did. They were all at the top of their game, and because of where I grew up in West Central Florida, and we fished lakes and ditches and golf courses and everything like that, I lived for fishing. And my dad saltwater fished a lot, but he always was a bait fisherman, and here I am, all my heroes are bass guys, until Flip Pallot came on the scene in the early 90s and started doing Walker's Cay. And I mean, literally shortly thereafter, I became a guide. I mean, but how many did you indoctrinate that you'll have no idea how many influences you made, that all these guys are like your tentacles into this sport. And a lot of them have really made it, you know, like Jose and Rob and Carter Andrews, who kind of is a splinter off Jose. You know, and when you really start to think about it, I mean, there's a lot of men out there that it all started at Walker's.
It did, and there's no question, but there's also no question that it would have started with them as well if they had been in the same situation. I mean, I'm grateful to have been there. I mean, of course, and things that you say are very flattering, but I'm a realist as well. I mean, I know that
You were the fishing guy, but there was other aspects to Walker's that made it more well-rounded to me, because I pay attention to everything that I see. I mean, you would talk about not only the fish, but the fauna and the animals and what was going on with the water. And I mean, you were so far ahead of everybody else that way that I found myself emulating those same things when I was with my clients. I would talk about, this is a red mangrove, this is a black mangrove, those ones that are further back in the estuary, those are white mangroves. And then I run into young people now that I'll fish with, and they're telling me the same thing. I already know it, but I think, where did they learn that?
No, that's fabulous. That's fabulous.
And it you can see it coming down the line, because I have the opportunity to introduce the new waterkeeper for the Caloosahatchee in Fort Myers area, and that's going to be Captain Cody Pierce. Well, if he was sitting here, he's just a younger version of what you are. I mean, he understands everything, what's going on and what makes this click with that click. And he's just such a great guy to be around. And I will do one of these diaries with him. I'm trying to do it with people that I find that are interesting. And the whole premise of this is to do the untold stories, the stuff that you haven't talked about with other people.
Right.
But
no, I think it's a great premise, great idea. No question.
Well, you know, walking up here today and seeing Donnell out front, I mean, I'm sitting there and I was like, you know, he was one of the questions I had in here, because that was the very first episode and we talked about it a little bit. But when you were watching Walker's Cay, you know, it always seemed like, oh, well, this is going to be about the Bahamas and this, that, and the other thing, bone fishing, permit fishing, reef fishing. But that was really just kind of the launch off spot. But when you were doing the stuff in the glades, whether you were fly fishing or if you were plug fishing, That was the hook for all of us, because we all wanted to be there. That's where we wanted to be. That was like what we thought was the holy grail. No matter where you lived in Florida, there was some backwater spot you could get into. And I mean, literally, as a young person, I used to watch Mel Allen's This Week in Baseball or Saban's This Week in the NFL, you know, and you'd get all fired up. But when walkers would come on, I got to tell you, I mean, if I couldn't go outside and go fishing, I was tying something on, or I was changing tackle out or something.
You know, I think part of that whole mystique was that the only outdoor programming that was available prior to walkers, I'll say, was a show similar to the ABC American Sportsman,
Yes.
or Outdoor Life, or Sports Afield,
That's
or
right.
those shows. All of them had what I call a celebrity format.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a very good fishing guide or hunter, and a celebrity from the motion pictures or from television or from
sports
Broadway
or something like that.
or sports.
Yeah.
And as entertaining as that was, it was not the real thing.
Yeah.
And very often the guest on the show was ill-equipped to do whatever it was that they were trying to do. And it was there was an awkwardness to it that reminded me of, for lack of a better term, fish out of water.
Mm-hmm.
These were people who would have been comfortable on a TV set, but they were not uncomfortable 60 yards out into those woods right there.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of walkers was to feature people who fit in a lot of ways, but mostly the fit had to do with friendship.
Yes.
In other words, almost every single guest ever in 16 years of that show was a friend.
Yes. I noticed that.
I mean, a real friend and a real angler.
Yeah.
Usually in whatever the venue happened to be for that week.
Yeah.
And so when I fished with, let's just say, Rob Fordyce, I was fishing with a great angler who was totally comfortable, maybe even more comfortable than myself, with whatever it was that we were doing. But beyond that, there was a relationship that was featured. And when viewers saw that, I mean, when you saw it, for example, you would see yourself there or hope to see yourself there, but it would be with a friend of yours,
That's right.
someone who you traditionally fish with.
Yeah, the names that come up the most that I think are like Jurasic when you fish with him, Borsky when you fish with him. These are people that are in your field and you're close to, and you have a kinship with them. And they're accomplished outdoors people as well. So
That's right.
everything clicked. It
That's
was
right.
like there wasn't a chance for failure, because you guys were going to have a great day no matter how tough the fishing
That's
was.
right. And what that comfort level, that comfort level is a rich soil
Mm-hmm.
that allows other things to sprout during the course of the 20 minutes of the show.
That's right.
Whether the sprout is humor, or whether the sprout is naughtiness, which sometimes happened. I mean, but as long as that comfort level is the basis, as long as the relationship is strong and genuine, then who knows what can
happen.
foment.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was like the chemistry is what germinated something during
Absolutely.
the show that sometimes you never even expected. You'd see something or something would happen.
Absolutely. And I know that shows that we've done together are exactly that. I mean, I'm not worried about what you're going to do. I'm not worried that if I pole as hard as I can up into the wind, I'm not worried that you're not going to give it your best, and I know what your best is. And sometimes that's not good enough, but I know that I got the best, and it just, I don't know, it's just, it's a rich environment in
For
many
positive
ways.
things to happen. And
You can say things to your friends in ways that are understood by other friends and other groups who are watching that goes, geez, I could have said that to Fred, or I could have said that to Bob, and he would have turned around and smacked me.
That's
Something
right.
like that. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's just
buddies giving buddies the business in a sense.
it is. It is. And I don't think that in this celebrity format that was so popular in the day, that could never happen.
Yeah.
Other things happened, but that could never happen. And that's what I think resonated so
Well, with,
clearly with the
with
audience
walkers.
that we had with
Yeah,
walkers. Yeah,
for
it was-
sure. Let's take a break and look at your garage.
Oh, that garage is a mess right now.
You know, everyone says that. Even I say that about my
No,
shop.
no, but it really, I'm moving all my hunting stuff from camp back in there. and
I
it's-
saw the side by side there.
It's just sitting, all that crap is just sitting in there. It's really,
Well, we just want to see the memorial to Yeti and just spur a few conversations about how things have changed, because you have a reputation for embracing traditionalism in everything you do, whether it's your hunting life or your fishing life or even your outdoor cooking, which I know you're ultra passionate about. And you do that regardless whether you have a relationship with a brand or if you just do it just because you like cooking outside, because I know you cook outside all the time. I mean, that's
every day.
every day. Yeah. So it's just part of life here. Well, Flip, I know you have a little bit of intrepidation about showing us the shop, being that it's in transition from hunting season to another hunting season probably. But we've got some great memories in here with the push-pull foot that you built out of the guava branch, and it's been featured in a lot of television shows, and it is definitely the topic of conversation every time I have a client meet me at the dock. They see that and they're like, is that the one that Flip built? I get that all the time.
You know, it was a pleasure to do that. And when that one wears out,
I know where to find another. I do
it's
know.
here waiting for you.
You know, I'm looking at this cast iron gas setup that you have here from Camp Chef, and I know you have a passion for cooking outside, because you and Diane cook outside basically every day, almost.
Every night I cook whatever the meat course or fish or chicken or whatever it is, I do it
protein.
out here.
Yeah.
Either on this or on a Traeger or something, but she does everything inside. And then when the weather's nice, we eat out here. When it's not, we eat in there.
Yeah.
So, but it always gets cooked in here. And I find that I can't cook in the garage. So this thing's all
On wheels.
on wheels, and I
Yeah.
just wheel it outside, and you know, where the grease can
Yeah, gonna
go
escape
away,
it.
and this works out really, really well for me. Really.
Well, seeing all this stuff from Yeti in here, let's walk up to the front porch and try to get out of the sun now that we got lit here, and grab some chairs and sit down. I want to ask you about Ryan and Roy Cedars, how that relationship got started, and really tell me how you fit their brand so well. That'd be something interesting.
Perfect.
Look, that actually looks like a mangrove plant, but how could a mangrove plant be this far in?
Only you would recognize a mangrove. We've had this about 20 years.
Really?
It started off just as a seedling.
As a pod?
Yeah, a pod.
Wow.
That's it.
And
doing pretty good.
You've made it survive this long, through freezes and whatnot,
As a house plant. Yeah.
as a houseplant.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, when we sit down here, I want to talk about your relationship with Ryan and Roy Cedars, and how the whole Yeti thing got really kicked off, because in some way, shape, or form, you have become the face of Yeti products.
Oh my God. The face of Yeti. I don't know.
How did that relationship with Ryan and Roy begin?
Actually began with their dad,
Really?
Roger.
Yeah.
Roger invented a product called Flex Coat Flex coat is the epoxy, the clear epoxy that's used, I think, pretty much universally on the threads of fishing rods made around the world. I mean, even the ones that are made offshore. But back in the day when I first met Roger, Flex coat was used on everything. Flex coat replaced varnish.
Okay.
In the old days, you know, everybody varnished the thread.
And they'd crack. And
It was terrible.
Yellow.
It was
they
terrible.
Were terrible.
But Flex coat was flexible, and it was hard, and it stayed clear.
Yeah.
And so Roger was at all of the fishing shows, you know, with
the boys.
yeah. And so, I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking back. It's like I always knew Roger.
Yeah.
And then when Ryan and Roy were coming up as kids, I got to know them. And Ryan was just fascinated with hunting and fishing. I mean, he was just eaten up. Roy too, but Ryan, for some reason, I just had more contact with Ryan. As a matter of fact, when Ryan got his driving license, he and his best friend used to drive over here from Texas in Roger's van, and they would camp in the back
Yard.
driveway there, and they would take my canoe, and they would fish the Indian River and the Mosquito Lagoon using my canoe when they were kids, basically.
I'll tell you, Ryan is an incredible angler. He is.
Oh, he's one of the best anglers there is.
I had an opportunity to film with him years and years ago with a FlatsClass episode that was out of Port O'Connor. And he's a man of few words. He doesn't really talk a whole lot until you put a fishing rod in his hand, and then he's a chatterbox. He's in his own element. I remember walking into that camp, which was Roger's camp there, and I guess the boys used it, and I saw all these old bingo lures and stuff like that, and I was like, wow, they've got all this stuff, all these old plug rods and stuff. And then I could see it looked like Ryan had $10,000 worth of fly rods that were hanging from the ceiling. And I go, so what lures are you going to be comfortable throwing tomorrow around here when I'm pulling you around? He goes, oh, I can't throw any lures to catch fish. He goes, I got to throw a fly. And it was going to be windy and all that. And I was like, great. We ran out there, put a boat that probably didn't belong in that shallow of water, and I forced it around a little bit. And I'll be damned if he didn't catch everything he saw.
Yeah, no,
I was impressed.
Yeah, he's one of the fishiest guys that I've ever known. And as much as he loves fishing, I think he loves bird hunting and deer hunting much,
Probably
much
even more.
Yeah, yeah. I remember I used to take groups of my friends from Florida, and we would go out to Texas every year in the spring, and we would pay a trespass fee to ranchers out there, and we would take our traditional bows and hunt turkeys out there. And when Ryan was still a little boy, I took him on one of those.
Those are Rio Grande turkeys?
They were Rio Grande turkeys, yeah. Ryan loves to hunt. I mean, great deer hunter, great bird hunter.
You can tell he's connected to the outdoors, because if you see him at a trade show or something like that, or back when he did those things, he just seemed like a fish out of water, like you said that the old client. But just as soon as you get him in a boat or woods or whatever, he's a totally different person.
Since he was a kid. So when they started the cooler business, it wasn't Yeti. They had another brand cooler that they were working with. But when they started Yeti, I was still filming the Walker shows. Or wait a minute, was I? It could have been after Walker's and I was filming something else, but whatever it was, they needed some commercials done.
I remember those commercials.
And you know, not that we're great commercial writers or anything like that, but we did their commercials for them for nothing, just you know, I mean, just to help them get started,
get them going.
And it was fun doing them. And they were fun, silly commercials. And then when Jose got involved with Yeti,
Then chicks started buying coolers.
certainly not because of me, that's for sure. But Jose and I did some fun Yeti commercials
Yes,
too.
you did.
They were really hysterical stuff. So the whole Yeti thing started with Roger and then Roy and Ryan, and still today, when I get a chance, I go hunting with them or fishing with them, and yeah, they're
cool
extended family almost.
Yeah, it's cool that you've stayed in touch with them, even though now Yeti is just such a...
It's a big company now.
It's a big company now.
It's a monster.
And it's just not for the wilderness anymore. They make luggage. They make active sports stuff, you know, for bikers or whatnot. It is, the brand is huge now. It's just as wild as it's always been, but it's also metropolitan, if you will.
You know, there was something in those early Yeti years, there was something wonderful about being involved with a company that if you had an idea, you could say something to the owners of the company, and if they liked it and wanted to do it, they didn't have to have a board of directors meeting and a study and a focus group, and they would just go, that sounds cool, let's do it,
yeah.
And you know what? 3 months later, it was in the catalog.
That's right.
It was
That's
amazing.
how it is with that's how it is with every brand now. It's just like that. And speaking to that kind of tangent, technology in general, when you look at what we have now, you have drones and you have forward-facing sonar, and you have all these terra servers where you can look at areas to fish. That has changed fishing so much and created so many shortcuts, this technology. Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Because you were a traditionalist, you had to learn it the old way. You even had to learn it before the paper maps actually had enough detail on them.
That's a hard concept to codify, because it's driven by the condition of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's just probably the best way to describe it is with the word inevitable.
Exactly.
I think it's just driven by the pace of life almost.
Yeah. Time doesn't stand still.
Yeah, I mean, it races ahead.
Yeah.
And so I think that in some ways it's good, because I think you can learn more faster. But I think in the process of doing that, you lose the peripheral things that you learn
and notice and you're aware of, because you're fast forwarding through something. And that brought me to that time when I was telling you the story about the cap that you signed and Lefty signed and Chico signed and Stu signed, and sitting there, which now is like 25 years ago, okay, going back 25 years, and sitting there and thinking, when someone asks you a question, well, where is this? How do I get to this place? And your answer, even 25 years ago when you were my age, was, I would never deny you the opportunity to learn this on your own, or the mystique of figuring it out. And I thought, to this day, I remember that. I go, what a perfect answer to that question, without making it sound curt or anything. It was the perfect answer.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. I think the simplest way to say it is that right now the journey from point A to point B is pretty rapid.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you drop a pin and send it to somebody on your phone and they go there. The journey used to be a journey.
That's right.
And you got a chance to trip over things, and you got a chance to get stuff stuck in your hands, and you got poison ivy, and
that's right.
I mean, it was a journey.
It was a journey.
So in the process of all those things that happened, you learned other things. You know, it reminds me of a fishing trip that Lefty invited me on to go to his favorite little smallmouth stream in the woods, deep in the woods of Maryland. It involved quite a long hike. And we got up in the morning at his house, we had breakfast, we got in his van, and we went to the woods, and we started through the woods. And Lefty, as you know, was an amazing outdoor photographer. And outdoor photography was a big part of any journey that you went on with Lefty. So took his cameras, we had our rods, and we had lunch, and we took off through the woods. And we weren't 6 steps into the woods, and Lefty says, wait, stop. He goes, don't brush up against that. That's stinging nettle. Oh, if that hits you on the, it'll sting the hell out of you. And so we walk around it, and we go a few more feet, and he stops. He goes, wait. He goes, see that plant right there? He goes, that's jewelweed. If you ever get stung by stinging nettle, you just take jewelweed and crunch it up and rub it on the spot. He said,
and it neutralizes it.
And then we go a little further, and he goes, wait, don't step over that log. He goes, see that snake on the other side? He goes, if you ever, I mean, and so.
You learn things along the way.
Well, we never got to the stream. I swear to God, we never got to the stream. It was, see, this one is shagbark hickory. He goes, this bark, the inner bark of this is what you can use to start a fire with. And I mean, we went on and on and on and on, and we got to this, we did get to the stream, it was too late to fish.
Yeah.
So the journey, although it was a smallmouth fishing trip, the journey along the way, I learned so many things.
It goes to the adage that the process is more important than the results sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, and that's how we grew up, and now people are growing up another way, and it's hard to say which is better.
Right.
They're just certainly very, very different.
For sure.
And they may never learn the things that we learned, but then again, those things were important to us. They may never be in a situation where they'll need those things.
That is true. With the way things are going, that is
so
absolute.
So who knows?
You
know, I mean, it's. I mean, I think that kids, young people that I come in contact with today, their young lives have been so different than my young life was. I mean, for us, and probably for you, falling out of a tree was
part of growing up.
Yeah, it's just normal happenstance. When we hopped on a bicycle, the thought of putting on a helmet
that never
was.
We used to race.
I mean, if I'd have
house.
seen somebody riding a bike with a helmet on, I probably would have thrown something at them.
We rode in the back of pickup trucks. We rode on the tailgate, and you'd get there, you'd have mud all over the back of your dungarees and on your boots.
When we drank out of the water hose, I mean, it was just
a different time.
Yeah,
a different time. So there is a rebellious, unfiltered part of you.
I am circumcised.
Okay.
So I just want to get that. I just want to get that out there.
Perfect.
And
action. That's what you need.
Okay, thank you.
Kind of talk a little about from your perspective, being excited for CA to come over and spend some time with you, have breakfast, get this guava foot that you've been waiting for a year to put on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't excited.
Okay, well, let's be clear.
I was actually ready to slip my wrists. We could actually make plans to fish for amberjack, and somehow we would wind up catching largemouth bass. You have to say action.
Action.
Before we do that, can we talk about, I don't know, Heather Locklear?
I don't know who that is.
You don't know who Heather Locklear is? Oh, man.
That's how young he is.
Go wait in the truck.
I mean, that was textbook right there.
That was.
That was textbook.
What did the cowboy say at his second rodeo?
I don't know.
This ain't my first rodeo.
Yeah.
What did he just say?
He said, "What did the cowboy say at my second?"
I know what he said.
And those outtakes, for instance, from our show were
Embarrassing.
but funny as hell, dude. Funny as hell. I've got to ask you, and I've always wanted to ask you, because you've always had this little frog shooting a bird on so many. I mean, it's been a bumper sticker for you. You have it on your hunt trailer, and I every time I go away and I go, damn, I wanted to ask him about that. How did that just effervesce and become part of your, I guess, way? It's kind of your way of what?
Everything has a story. Everything has a story. So, with the frog, I was building a new airboat.
Okay.
And I wanted to have a frog on the rudders of the airboat, the big steering rudders on the back of the airboat. I wanted to have a frog painted on the rudders. And so my friend Bill Bishop, who's also a great
Angler
and tarpon fisherman and a pretty doggone good writer himself, is also a great artist.
Really?
He's a great artist.
I would never
with
known
lots
that.
of lots of training in illustrative art or illustrative art or whatever you call it. But Bill's a very good artist. Very, very, very good artist. Very good artist. Did I say that?
You said that.
Very good artist.
Yeah.
So I asked Bill, I said, Bill, would you draw me a frog for my rudders of my airboat? And he goes, man, a frog? I said, yeah, I want a frog. He goes, well, what kind of frog do you want? I said, a frog. He said, a happy frog? You want a sad frog? Or what? I said, I don't know what kind of frog. I said, just draw me a frog. Well, that's the frog.
That's the frog he drew.
That's the frog that he came up with. Yeah.
Wow. And no one would have ever guessed that.
No. So everywhere you look, there's a story. That frog is not just some frog that came off of an artist's paintbrush somewhere. That frog came from Bill Bishop, and it means a tremendous amount to me. I actually have the original art. He gave me the original art.
And you have it in a
I have it framed upstairs.
Matted.
Yeah.
There probably have, I mean, the experiences you have over a lifetime, and knowing you probably have a crap ton more to go through, because you're out every day doing something. You never slow down. Your energy is just, it's amazing to me. You are definitely the benchmark there. But I mean, you've been inducted into the IGFA Hall of Fame, and you've probably collected, I don't know how many stewardship awards and things like that over time. But I would have to think someone in your position, looking back over what's happened, your proudest stuff has to be all the people that are in your wake that you've helped somehow or influenced somehow, and what they've done. Like the guys at Captains for Clean Water and things like that. I mean, you are our portal or our window back to way things should have been, and there's no way for people, even my age, to have the perspective that someone like your age would have, because you saw more than I did, and I've seen more than my son has. But you are that window that gives us, hey, this is what this is supposed to look like. This is what this is supposed to feel like. This is what this is supposed to smell like. And I would think that when you see guys like Benny Blanco and Whitman and these guys that are so passionate about saving what we have left, that you have to be as proud about that as you are all these awards and accolades you've collected over your life, because I'm sure you have an attic full of them. And to me, you seem like the type of guy that crap doesn't really matter that much to, but I mean, at the end of the day, it does matter to everybody else that recognizes you.
You know, when I look at people like Benny, and all the guys at Captains and the other organizations that have really stood up, you know, and gone to the trouble and taken the wounds, and it does make me very, very pleased to see them that involved in everything. And it makes you feel guilty at the same time that somehow you weren't a better steward of it in the beginning. But then retrospect is such a clear filter. There wasn't a lot that we could have done. I feel guilty about it, and I wonder why my father didn't do more and instill in me at a much earlier point in the development and the taking of the state of Florida. But there's not much we could have done. The scale was at runaway proportions.
That's what I was going to say. It happened so fast.
And the awareness, the level of awareness generally among the public was so minuscule that it was impossible to start a fire.
Yeah.
There was not enough tinder to start a fire. If you understand.
I totally understand, because the state's so transient with other people that are moving here that have no idea what something is supposed to be like.
So we were aware of the changes. I think about the hundreds and hundreds of conversations that I've had with Rob Fordyce, who I spent so much time with in wild Florida, in the deep Everglades, not only in the estuary, but in the swamps, hunting and we saw it changing.
Yeah.
But there was no
stopgap
platform.
Yeah.
There was no social media. There was no way to spread the alarm.
Yeah.
It was like riding through the village and saying the British are coming.
That's right. The Paul Revere.
Yeah, we couldn't start the fire. Now, the playing field is such that a fire can be started.
Yes.
And there's a way for the fire to spread.
Yes.
So, or at least I tell myself this so that I don't feel so guilty for it's having happened on my watch, so to speak. But I really don't know what we could have done differently. We yelled and screamed and hollered and pissed into the wind, but
yeah, Jerry Jeff Walker, that's a good one. But it's true. It's true. It happened so fast, because when people ask even me about it, I go, this propelled itself on us so quickly that there was no way to stop it as much as you'd wanted to. You could pump the brakes all you want, and you could not keep from hitting the vehicle in front of you.
Here's another thing, and this is true. I hope you can understand what I'm getting ready. Because I'll remember this always. One evening, my father and I were riding on a newly developed expressway in the southwest part of Miami, and we were looking back to the east as the sun was setting, and west of us was the Everglades, and just east of us was a new building that they had just put up, and it was long ago, and it was the first building that I had ever seen that had coppery windows. In other words, the windows looked like they were, when you were inside looking out, everything looked normal, but when you're looking in, the windows looked like they were made out of copper. The sun was going down, it was a red sunset, and my father said, "Look at that building." He goes, "Look at," and the red sunset was being reflected by these coppery windows, and it was an amazing sight. But we were looking back east at this new, huge, giant building with copper windows reflecting the redness of the sunset. And he was looking at the building saying how beautiful this building is with the reflection. Now, I was looking west into the Everglades where the actual sun was setting, and I thought to myself, my God, my father thinks that's beautiful. And so what we were up against was a population at that time who thought development was good.
That's right.
Development was the future. Development was what we were striving for. We were improving things by developing them and drawing people and bringing money and bringing a tax base. And I was looking out at the sun setting and going, my God, what am I doing here? You know, where am I? Who am I? What? So it was no matter what we had done then, while all this was happening, we couldn't have made any kind of an impact. We couldn't have slowed it. It was a juggernaut that was out of control. So
I get it. But I will say, as much as your heroes were the Stu Apps and the Lefty Crays and the Tom Evans and the Joe Brooks and all those guys that were before my time, they seem like old timers. Well, you seem like my dad. Now I think about it, and I've always said this about you. You were different than everyone else. You were that gritty particulate of sand in our outdoor world that somehow got into an oyster and made all these pearls of these guys that have basically, I don't know, it's almost like you were the blueprint, and they've kept this going. They've kept the sport going, they've kept everything. They want to keep things as traditional as possible and keep going. And then sometimes I feel like you get frustrated, you don't understand what you mean to the rest of us, you know what I mean? It's like, you just go about your life because you're every day. Diane treats you the same way, your friends like Dozer that was out there, they all treat you the same way. But to us, you're always gonna be this special person that has this thing about them that we realize, hey, you're kind of a Florida treasure to us. You're a Mount Rushmore guy to us. You'll always be that guy.
That's flattering beyond belief, and probably not true, but very kind of you to say, too kind.
Well, before we wind it down, there's a few more things that really I want to go. One is a lightning round, so to speak. So I don't want you to go too crazy with each one of these names, but I just want you to tell me what the first thing that comes to mind when I say them, or some sentiment about them.
I'm terrible at this.
No, Herman Lucerne.
The Everglades.
Yeah.
The Everglades.
Yeah, the Everglades, man. Tim Borski.
Incredible humor.
Ted Jurczyk.
Incredible talent.
Yeah. Dozer. He was actually on my list. John Donnell.
Just a man to ride the river with.
Yeah. It seemed like he was that guy for you.
Yeah, I mean, he's
brother in arms.
Yeah, I mean, he's the guy. Here's who he is. If I called 50 of my friends and asked them if I could borrow $5,000, they would pull out their checkbook right away. And if I needed a kidney, that's who I would call.
That's who it is.
And he would leap up onto the table and.
Yep, gladly do it.
Of course, I'm not really sure I would want his kidney.
You spent too many rum drinks with him in camp.
Yeah,
you might be getting a goner.
Might be the wrong kidney donor.
One of the sweetest guys in this business, and my wife absolutely loves him, and he's got to be the biggest romantic in fly fishing. That would be Chico Fernandez.
Chico, Don Chico.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, my friend since 1959.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, Chico, my oldest friend. I mean,
he is an amazing person. Jose Wejebe.
He was the best of us all. I mean, he was the best of us all, and he possessed this gift of being able to peer into the lens of a camera and invite you into his life.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have
Very relatable.
a lure in his hand that he would peer into the lens of the camera and go, come here, I want you to see these hooks. I can't do, I mean, nobody can do that.
No.
Movie actors can't do that. Jose was gifted in many ways, but
He was. And I wish I could have spent more time now that I know how things turned out. Stu Apt.
Stu Apt, the man.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the man.
Yeah.
When everyone else was following Joe DiMaggio and Mickey Mantle, I was hiding in the bushes early in the morning, watching Stu Apt get into the skiff with his customers to see what he was wearing and get a glimpse of the fly line that he was using. And Stu Apt, the man.
Who I call the heir apparent is Rob Fordyce.
Rob, oh my God. I mean,
Is he a teddy bear or is he a tough guy? Because I'm more afraid of Catherine than I am of Rob now. And well, I should be.
Catherine may well be in charge, but I think it's because he allows it. He's got a huge heart.
Oh, I know.
I mean,
He takes the environment and everything
No,
so
he's got
personal.
a tremendous heart, but don't make any mistake about the fact that he's not a tough guy.
Yeah.
He's as tough as they come, and if we had time, I could tell you stories that would illustrate that. I don't know anyone tougher than Rob,
Yeah.
but I don't know of a bigger heart either.
Yeah. Steve Huff.
Steve, talk about grit.
I know
mean,
he's
yeah.
John Wayne.
Yeah, Steve wants to pull into the wind.
Yes, I know he does.
He wants to squint into the early morning light. He wants to go fishing.
Yeah.
He just wants to go fishing.
when they put guide in the Merriam-Webster dictionary,
Steve,
all they need to do is
yeah.
have a picture of Steve
Yeah,
Huff, and
Steve.
everyone knows.
And also the same kind of big, huge heart and incredible talent. You know, I mean, Steve's the guy that can do it.
Yeah.
In other words, whatever it is, you know, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. He can do it.
Doesn't hesitate.
No.
All right, and this one, who I know he's a dear friend, a mentor, and everything to you, was Lefty Cray.
Yeah, Lefty was part dad, part brother, part friend, part mentor. Everybody kicks the term mentor around. I know guys that I see it all the time. Yeah, Lefty was my mentor, and they knew him for 50 minutes.
Yeah.
And he helped them with their casting
Yeah.
at a show one time, and he was their mentor. Mentor is much, much, much more than that.
Yeah.
He was a teacher to many, 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 many thousands and thousands of people. Lefty brought a method of casting to the sport that allowed maybe millions of people to pick up a fly rod and feel as though they could do it.
Right.
Lefty's method, it may not be the best method, it's certainly not the only method, but it was the method that made people feel like this is possible, I can fly cast.
That's right.
And that was Lefty's gift to us all, among many, 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 many other gifts. I mean,
His manner was unbelievable. It felt like when you met him, you knew him all his life. He always made everyone feel comfortable.
he did.
Which brings me to my last thing. You have a sentiment or a gesture that has always resonated with me. It's your bye for now. It's never permanent. It's always we'll see each other again.
That's the whole reason for that.
Yeah. It's powerful.
And so the nice thing is that you don't have to use it all the time.
Right.
If you don't want or intend to see that person again, you can just say, see ya.
Thanks for giving me the heads up.
Yeah. But if you hear bye for now, that means I'm looking forward to the next time.
That's right. And that's what I always take it as. And,
So-
and when I hear you say it, it is one of the most unique things about you is that bye for now.
So, bye for now.
Yep.